1. Let me tell you about this interesting 1979 Chevy C10. I found on Craigslist for $2,800. I've got to be straight with you. This is actually a pretty intriguing find for the money. This C10 Custom Deluxe is a long bed model, packing a 305 V8 with a TH350 automatic transmission. What's cool is that the owner has modernized it a bit with a TBI, throttle body injection conversion and power brakes, but kept the classic look intact. The seller mentions it fires right up and runs great, which is always good news for these old trucks. Now let's be honest about the condition. There are some issues to address. The driver's side has some pinholes, small rust spots, and the hood is bent from previously frozen hood springs. However, the seller has done quite a bit of work, including new hooker headers, fresh 2.25 inches exhaust, new engine seals, and various electrical components. The doors have been refreshed with new rubber seals and hardware too. The odometer shows 30,000 miles, but it is rolled over, so we're talking about 130,000 plus miles here. There's no title, which is something you'll need to factor into your decision. For $2,800, considering the current market, this could be a decent project truck, especially if you're looking to learn about classic Chevys. The seller seems pretty straightforward about the truck's condition and has been using it regularly around Huntsville, which suggests it's a running, driving vehicle. 2. We're looking at a 1976 Ford F100 that's listed for $22,500. And I've got to be completely honest with you, this price is pretty steep for what's being offered. This is a short bed F100 with the straight 6 engine, showing 71,000 miles on the odometer. The seller claims it's in excellent condition and has a clean title, which is good. But here's where I need to be real with you. The listing is incredibly sparse on details for a truck commanding this kind of money. We're not getting any information about restoration work, maintenance history, or even recent updates. While these F100s are becoming increasingly collectible, and the straight 6 is known for its reliability, $22,500 is serious money for a 76 F100, especially without detailed documentation or extensive photos. For context, you can typically find good condition F100s from this era in the $12,000, $18,000 range, depending on restoration quality and modifications. The red paint looks clean in the listing, and having the original short box configuration is desirable, but without more information about the truck's history or condition, it's hard to justify this asking price. If you're seriously interested, you definitely want to see this truck in person and get a thorough documentation of its history and any restoration work that's been done. Remember, I'm here to give you honest insights, and while this might be a beautiful example of a 76 F100, the price point seems optimistic without more supporting information about what makes this particular truck special. 3. Let's talk about this 1967 Chevy C10 that's listed for $26,500. I've got to say, the 67 C10s are some of the most sought-after classic trucks, and this one's got some interesting features to discuss. What we're looking at here is a step-side C10 in blue, powered by a 350 V8 engine paired with an automatic transmission. The sellers equipped it with some nice modern conveniences, power steering and disc brakes, which honestly make these old trucks much more enjoyable to drive in today's traffic. The dual exhaust system probably gives it that classic V8 rumble we all love. Now, let's be real about the price. $26,500 is definitely in the higher range for these trucks. While the listing states excellent condition and shows 99,000 miles with a clean title, I have to point out that the description is pretty minimal for a truck in this price bracket. We're not getting details about restoration history, whether the 350 is original or rebuilt, or the condition of the interior beyond mentioning a stereo system. These 67 C10s have skyrocketed in value over the past few years, but for this kind of money, you'd typically expect a detailed breakdown of the truck's history, restoration work, and any modifications. The step-side bed is a desirable feature, and if the bodywork and mechanicals are truly excellent, the price could be justified. If you're seriously interested in this truck, I'd strongly recommend seeing it in person and getting a thorough documentation of its history and any restoration work. While it appears to be a clean example of a desirable classic truck, you'll want to verify the quality of work done and the overall condition to justify that $26,500 price tag. 4. I'm looking at a pretty interesting 1963 Chevy C30 dually that's listed for $7,500. And I've got to be completely honest with you about this one. Let's start with the good stuff. This beast is packing a big block 396 V8 with a Holley 4-barrel carb, mated to a 400 turbo transmission, and they're claiming only 2,160 miles on this powertrain combo. That's some serious muscle. The seller's invested in some meaningful upgrades. There's a custom instrument cluster, new wiring harness with MSD ignition, fresh gas tank, radiator, windshield, and a 3-inch Dynamax exhaust. They've even got a brand new, never-installed heat and air system that apparently costs $3,000. Now, let's be straight about the rough stuff, because the seller is pretty upfront about it, which I appreciate. The interior needs work. They describe it as rough. The paint job needs to be redone, and the brakes need attention. That last part is pretty important on a heavy-duty truck like this. For $7,500, you're getting a project truck with some really solid mechanical upgrades, but needing cosmetic restoration. The dually configuration with alloy wheels and 6 good tires is a plus, and that big block 396 is definitely a desirable power plant. This could be a great opportunity for someone who's not afraid to tackle some restoration work and wants a unique classic truck with some serious power under the hood. Just remember, you'll need to factor in the cost of paint, interior work, and most importantly, getting those brakes sorted out properly. 5. We're looking at a 1985 GMC S15 listed for $7,500. And I've got to be honest, this price requires some serious discussion. This S15 comes with the 4-cylinder engine and a manual transmission, showing 117,000 miles on the clock. The seller claims it's never seen winter driving, which is a big plus for these older trucks, as it usually means less rust and better preservation. They're stating it's in excellent condition with a clean title. However, I need to be completely straight with you here. $7,500 is a pretty ambitious asking price for an S15 of this era, even in excellent condition. While these trucks are starting to gain some collector interest, they typically sell for considerably less unless they're absolutely pristine or heavily modified. The listing is surprisingly sparse on details. For this kind of money, we'd expect to see information about maintenance history, any restoration work, condition of the interior, engine bay photos, and details about recent repairs or upgrades. The seller's only giving us the bare minimum information, which makes it hard to justify the price point. If you're interested in this truck, you'll definitely want to see it in person and get a thorough inspection. These S15s are generally reliable little trucks, and finding one that's been kept out of winter weather is nice, but make sure you're getting your money's worth at this price point. 6. Let's talk about this 1984 Dodge D150 Prospector that's listed for $10,500. And I've got to say, this one's got an interesting story. What we're looking at here is a long bed D150 with the V8 engine and automatic transmission, showing just 69,000 miles. Now, here's where it gets interesting. This truck spent 25 years tucked away in a garage, only coming out for occasional drives and smog checks. That kind of storage history can be a real preservation blessing for these old Dodges. The seller's been putting in some solid mechanical work. We're talking new hoses, belts, gaskets, battery, radiator, and carburetor. They claim there are no leaks, which is always good news for a truck of this vintage. The interior is described as original and in amazing condition, which makes sense given its garage-kept history. There's a modern touch with a new JVC Bluetooth stereo, and they're throwing in an uninstalled subwoofer. The exterior has what appears to be intentional patina on the hood and roof, which the seller is planning to treat with Penetrol, a finish that helps preserve and enhance patina. For $10,500, you're getting a well-preserved example of these increasingly collectible Dodge trucks. The low mileage and garage storage history are definitely strong selling points, and the recent mechanical refreshing suggests it's ready to roll. The Prospector package was a nice trim level for these trucks, adding some desirable features. 7. Let's talk about this 1957 Ford F-100 that's listed for $12,900. And I've got to say, this one's got some interesting features worth discussing. We're looking at a short bed F-100 with the desirable big back window configuration, powered by the 223 straight-six engine with some nice upgrades. The sellers added a Clifford manifold, a two-barrel carb, and a split exhaust manifold running through dual glass packs, which probably gives this classic a sweet sound. Let's be honest about the condition. There are some rust issues that need addressing. The seller's upfront about rust under the steps, in the door jambs, and along the passenger door's bottom rocker panel. While they say it's not terrible, any rust on these old Fords needs to be taken seriously, as it can spread. On the positive side, it's got new tires and wheels, a nice interior, and all the glass is in good shape, including that valuable big back window. The grille and front bumper are described as nice, which is important as these parts can be expensive to replace. The truck runs and drives well according to the seller, and comes with a clean Oregon title. For $12,900, considering today's market for 57 F-100S, this price seems relatively reasonable if the rust isn't worse than described. These trucks have become quite collectible, and finding one that's running and driving with some desirable upgrades isn't easy anymore. 8. We're looking at a pretty special 1963 Ford F-100 unibody listed for $24,500, and there's a lot to unpack here. First off, let's acknowledge what makes this truck unique. It's a rare unibody short bed with the big window configuration. These unibody F-100S were only made for a brief period, and finding one in solid condition isn't easy. This example has some serious upgrades that transform it into a proper Restomod. Under the hood, there's a 351 Windsor V8 with a 4-barrel carb paired with an AOD transmission. That's a solid powertrain combo that'll give you modern drivability. The suspension has been modernized with a Plymouth Volare independent front setup and disc brakes, plus power steering, all great upgrades for actual usability. The interior's gotten some love with T-bird seats and matching door panels, new carpet and headliner, and modern amenities like a retro sound Bluetooth system with subwoofer. There's also a custom center console and added seat belts for safety. Now, let's be completely honest about the condition. The seller mentions some Bondo cracks showing in places, which is important to note. The AC isn't working due to a wiring issue from the radio installation. However, they've done some thoughtful work like rebuilding the original tailgate, rather than using a reproduction, and the frame and body are described as rust-free. For $24,500, you're getting a pretty unique piece of Ford truck history with modern drivability upgrades. The unibody models are becoming increasingly collectible, and this one has had significant work done to make it a practical driver. 9. Let's talk about this 1966 Ford F-100 that's listed for $21,500. And I've got to say, this is an interesting blend of old and new. What we've got here is a 66 F-100 that's keeping its original paint and patina on the outside, which is becoming increasingly popular in the classic truck world, but hiding some serious modern upgrades underneath. The biggest talking point is that fresh LS motor with FI Tech fuel injection and remote tuning capability. That's a significant upgrade that brings modern reliability and performance to this classic Ford. The drivetrain's been modernized with an overdrive transmission, making this truck actually usable for highway cruising. They've also added power steering and power brakes with front discs, 3 upgrades that dramatically improve the driving experience compared to stock. Inside, there's a mix of new comfort items including a fresh seat, new dash pad, and modern Dakota digital gauges, which look cool and provide accurate readings for that modern powertrain. The $21,500 asking price reflects the significant mechanical upgrades, especially that LS swap and modern fuel injection setup. These aren't cheap modifications when done right, and they transform an old truck into something you can actually use regularly. 10. We're looking at a pretty special 1976 Ford F-154 X4 listed for $25,000, and this one's got quite a story behind it. This is a true one-family truck, purchased new by the seller's father in '76 and kept in the family since. What makes this particularly interesting is the documented history and care it's received over the years. We're talking about a garage-kept truck its entire life, which is pretty rare for these old workhorses. Under the hood, there's a 390 V8 that replaced the original 360 back in 1992, and they've got the paperwork to prove it. It's equipped with Hedman headers and a custom dual exhaust setup, which probably gives it a nice rumble. The seller's just done some fresh maintenance in 2024, including new plugs, wires, distributor components, and steering column coupler. Some nice custom touches include a heavy-duty rear bumper with integrated trailer hookups, a roll bar, and a bed liner. The odometer shows 43,824 miles, but is rolled over, so keep that in mind. Now let's talk about that $25,000 asking price. While it's definitely on the higher end for a 76 F150, what you're paying for here is the documented one-family ownership, garage-kept condition, and what appears to be meticulous maintenance history. These factors can make a huge difference in the value of a classic truck. However, I'd strongly recommend seeing this truck in person. It's in Billings, Montana, to verify its condition. The listing mentions it's been in semi-storage mode since 2018, so you'll want to check all systems thoroughly. 11. Let's talk about this 1970 Ford F100 that's listed for $19,000, and I've got to be completely honest with you. This listing leaves us with a lot of questions. What we know is that it's powered by a 360 V8 with an automatic transmission, and the sellers owned it for 30 years, which is actually a pretty good sign of long-term care. They mention it has a new engine with only about 6,000 miles on it, new interior, and new tires. However, I've got to be straight with you here. For $19,000, the listing is surprisingly sparse on details. While they claim excellent condition and great shape, we're not getting any specifics about the restoration work, what exactly was done to the interior, or the overall condition of the body and frame. The odometer shows 67,000 but has rolled over, so we're looking at 167,000 plus miles on the chassis. The long-term ownership is definitely a plus, as these trucks often suffer from multiple owners making various modifications. However, for this price point in today's market, you'd expect a much more detailed description of the truck's condition, restoration history, and specific improvements made. For $19,000, make sure you get a good look at everything: body condition, undercarriage, all mechanical systems, and proof of the recent work claimed. While these F100s are climbing in value, this price point demands solid documentation and condition. 12. Let's talk about this 1983 Ford F254 X4 that's listed for $5,500, and I've got to be really honest, this listing is about as bare bones as they come. What we know is pretty limited. It's a 4x4 F250 that apparently runs well enough to have passed smog last year, and it's got good tires. The odometer's showing 83,000 miles, but it's both broken and rolled over, so yeah, the actual mileage is anyone's guess here. The seller mentions it needs some minor work, but doesn't specify what kind of work we're talking about. That's always a bit of a red flag because minor can mean very different things to different people. For $5,500, you're looking at what's probably a running and driving work truck, but you'll definitely want to inspect it thoroughly. These old Ford F250s are known for being tough workhorses, but by 1983, they're now 40-year-old vehicles that typically have lived hard lives. If you're interested, make sure to get a good look underneath and ask about maintenance history. These trucks can be great workhorses when properly maintained, but at this age, they usually need some love to keep them running right. 13. We're looking at a pretty sweet find on Craigslist, a 1969 Chevrolet C20 custom pickup that's caught my attention at $12,000. Let me tell you, finding an original big block 396 with the turbo 400 automatic transmission in this condition is getting harder these days. I've got to be straight with you. This truck isn't perfect, but that's part of its charm. The original green paint has definitely seen better days and is pretty faded, and yes, it needs a new windshield. But here's what makes this C20 special. It's remarkably straight and unmolested, which is rare for these old workhorses. The seller's done some solid work here. The wood bed has been redone, and all the electricals are functioning, which is often a nightmare in classics. We're talking about a truck with 144K miles that still runs and drives great. The interior is in nice shape and the brakes are good, both crucial points for any classic truck buyer. Now let's address the rust situation honestly. There's some minimal rust at the rocker panels, but importantly the cab floors are solid. For a 69, that's actually pretty good news. These trucks often have serious rust issues, so finding one with only minor rust is a win. 14. We're checking out something really special, a 1966 Chevy C10 that's asking $27,000. And let me tell you, this one's got my attention for all the right reasons. What we're looking at here is a seriously clean example that's had a full body-off restoration, and that's a big deal. When someone takes the time to do a body-off resto, it usually means they've addressed everything from top to bottom. The fact that it's showing just 13,003 miles suggests this is likely the mileage since the restoration, which makes sense given how clean this truck appears to be. The power plant is a classic 327 V8 paired with a 4-speed transmission. That's a dream combination for many C10 enthusiasts. It gives you that perfect balance of classic muscle and usability. The addition of power steering is a really nice touch that makes this truck much more enjoyable for regular use. Now, $27,000 might seem steep to some, but in today's market for a properly restored C10, especially one with a body-off restoration, this price is actually in line with what these trucks are commanding. The beautiful blue paint and those new tires suggest this is a truck that's ready to show or drive right now. No immediate needs or issues to address. First-gen C10s, especially the 66 model, are some of the most sought-after classic trucks out there, and for good reason. They've got those perfect classic lines, great proportions, and they're genuinely fun to drive. This one seems to tick all the right boxes: restored condition, desirable powertrain combo, and practical upgrades like power steering. 15. We're looking at an interesting find. A 1970 Chevrolet C20 Longhorn pickup listed at $8,000. And I've got to keep it real with you about this one. Let's start with the good news. The seller claims 70,000 miles on the clock and mentions the body is in excellent condition without rust in the typical trouble spots, which is pretty remarkable for a 50-plus-year-old work truck. These C20s typically rust out in the cab corners, floor pans, and bed, so if it's truly rust-free, that's a big plus. However, I've got to be straight with you. There are some red flags here. The truck hasn't been started in a few years, which means you're looking at potentially significant work to get it running again. We're talking about possible fuel system issues, seized components, and all the typical problems that come with long-term storage. The passenger door may need replacing. That's another repair to factor into your budget. At $8,000 OBO, or best offer, you're essentially buying a project truck. While it's described as fully complete, which is great for restoration purposes, you'll need to invest time and money to bring this Longhorn back to life. The Longhorn Edition is a desirable variant of the C20, which adds some value, but don't let that cloud your judgment about the work ahead. 16. We're looking at a pretty interesting package deal. Two 1966 Chevy C20 long beds for $20,000, and this listing has got some serious meat to it. Let's dive into what makes this deal intriguing. The main truck, Truck 1, is packing some serious muscle with a 454 big block that's been nicely upgraded with a Holley carb, Crower cam, and Sanderson headers. The transmission setup is impressive too. A deep sump 400 turbo with a US gear overdrive unit paired with a 4.10 Detroit locker rear end. That's a serious power delivery system. What really catches my attention is the thoughtful build approach. They've added power disc brakes, the desirable 8-lug setup, power steering, and both engine and trans oil coolers. The desert cooler system shows they've really thought about reliability. The digital gauges are a nice modern touch that'll help you keep an eye on all that power. Now here's the clever part. Truck 2 comes as a parts donor, running a small block 350 with a turbo 350 trans. Plus, there's a treasure trove of new reproduction parts included: doors, fenders, radiator support, oak bedwood and rails, floor pans, chrome bumper, and all the rubber bits you'd need for a proper restoration. At $20,000 for everything, you're basically getting a hot-rodded C20 with a complete parts truck and enough spares to build another one, or keep the first one going strong. In today's market, where classic truck prices keep climbing, this package could be a solid deal for the right buyer. 17. Let's talk about this sweet 1985 Dodge W150 that's up for grabs at $6,500. I've got to say, this one's caught my eye as a pretty solid deal in today's market. What we're looking at here is a clean example of Dodge's tough-as-nails W154X4, and this one's got some tasty upgrades. The heart of the beast is the reliable 318 5.2L V8, which has been thoughtfully modified with an Edelbrock carb and a Holly Street Performer intake. Nice touches that add some extra punch without going overboard. That 3 inches exhaust probably gives it a nice rumble too. With 89K miles on the clock, this truck's just getting broken in for these old Dodges. The sellers added some seriously practical upgrades. Fox 2.0 shocks are quality pieces that'll improve both on and off-road handling. And those BFG tires are always a solid choice for a 4x4. The aluminum radiator is a smart upgrade for better cooling, and the LED headlights bring some modern visibility to the package. I really dig the functional additions like the roll bar, off-road lights, and bed liner. Shows this truck was built to be used, not just shown. The tailgate pad suggests it's been well cared for too. At $6,500, you're getting a lot of truck here. These mid-80s Dodges are getting harder to find in clean, well-maintained condition, and this one appears to have been upgraded with purpose, rather than just for show. The 318 is known for its reliability, and with the modest performance upgrades, you're looking at a truck that should be both capable and dependable. 18. We're diving into something truly special, and I mean special, a 1976 Chevy C30 dually that's just oozing with personality at $11,000. Let me tell you, this isn't your average classic truck listing. This big yellow beast is packing a 454 big block paired with a turbo 400 transmission. A combo that'll have you on a first-name basis with every gas station owner in town. It's a former stock car hauler that's basically a rolling time capsule of peak 70s and 90s truck culture combined. Let's be completely honest about what we're looking at here. This C30 is far from perfect, and the seller's wonderfully colorful description makes no attempt to hide it. The tires are ancient, or as the seller puts it, old enough to have a sizable 401k. The interior is described as reminiscent of a cheap 80s mobile home, and it needs some mechanical sorting before becoming a reliable cruiser. But what makes this truck special is its authentic period modifications. We're talking a Lund eyebrow visor, cab roof chicken lights, a custom louvered hood, and chrome wheel covers for both the dually and steer tires. It's got that perfect truck stop chic vibe that you just can't replicate without looking fake. At $11,000, you're buying more than just a C30 dually. You're getting a piece of American truck culture that's becoming increasingly rare. Sure, it needs work, but finding a big block C30 with this much character and original period modifications is getting harder every year. 19. We're checking out a pretty sweet 1966 Chevy El Camino for $10,000, and this one's got an interesting story with 30 years of single ownership. That's always a good sign. Let's dive into what makes this El Camino special. It's running a 327 V8 paired with a turbo 350 transmission, a reliable and peppy combination that's perfect for these vehicles. The sellers added some nice upgrades over the years. Headers and an H-pipe dual exhaust setup, which probably makes it sound fantastic, a modern Dakota digital gauge cluster, and a new aluminum radiator for better cooling. The rally wheels give it that perfect period-correct look, and power steering makes it much more enjoyable to drive in today's world. With 120K miles on the original odometer before the digital gauge upgrade, this El Camino has clearly been used, but not abused. Now let's be honest about the condition. The seller mentions some minor rust, which is pretty common for these cars. You'll want to check the usual spots like the lower quarters, fenders, and bed floors carefully. However, the fact that it comes with lots of spare parts is a huge bonus. That can be a lifesaver with these classic vehicles. At $10,000, considering today's market for classic El Caminos, This seems like a fair deal for a running, driving example with some thoughtful upgrades. The long-term ownership suggests it's been cared for, and the modifications are practical rather than just cosmetic. 20. We're checking out this absolutely killer 1963 Chevy C10 shortbox step-side that just popped up on Craigslist for $20,000. This is not your grandpa's work truck anymore, folks. This beauty is rocking a slammed stance with that classic lowered profile that just screams custom street truck. The black paint is looking clean and mean, and those wheels with fresh rubber really set off the whole package. The seller notes it's in excellent condition, and from what I can see, this thing looks tight. Under the hood, we've got a beast of a rebuilt 350 V8 that's been bored .40 over with flat-top pistons, a 292 Isky cam, and those desirable camel hump 202 heads. Add in double valve springs, roller rockers, and an aluminum intake topped with a new 750 Edelbrock with mechanical secondaries. This thing must pull hard. The power runs through a turbo 350 transmission with a 3,500 stall converter, so this truck is definitely built to move. And stopping power? No worries there with the Camaro front-end conversion giving you modern disc brakes. With only 48,000 miles on the clock and a clean title, this is a turnkey classic truck with serious performance upgrades that you can drive and enjoy immediately. At $20K, you're getting a ton of custom work and performance for the money.